It wasn't perfect, but Derek Couriel and LSU walk off Louisiana Tech in a run rule win. We'll recap it locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. LSU beats Louisiana Tech 15-5 in a run rule victory that was not pretty all the way through, but it definitely had some real highlights and bright spots that we want to go through here on today's episode. So thanks for hanging out with us, especially if you're live with us on YouTube here after the game on Tuesday night. Let's just start with what I thought were the high points. We'll go through some chronology of the game. Obviously, the opportunity to walk off the game, you needed a big bottom of the eighth there, and you got it. But what really stands out to me is in this ball game, of the 15 runs that you scored, 10 of those 15 came with two outs. Your first 7 came with two outs. The first run that didn't was Zach York's leadoff homer in the bottom of the 5th. But then later in that inning, Couriel had an RBI double with two outs. That was the 8th run. And then in the bottom of the 8th inning there, you ended up scoring your final 3 runs there with two outs. So, 34, yeah, your final 3 was, so I guess it was 11 runs that you scored. 11 runs that you scored with two outs in the ball game. So I thought the ability to hit in the clutch is something that has evaded this team throughout the course of the year. If you're an everydayer and you're here with us on all the post games, thank you. It's something that we talk about is missed opportunities, and they've been plentiful. I mean, this past weekend, you saw that in all 3 games against Oklahoma, where your pitching was plenty good enough to win that series. You allowed 9 runs in 3 games. You allowed 9 runs in 3 games and lost the series because you just couldn't find a way to hit really at all. But certainly when you had opportunities and needed the big hit, you didn't get it. So let's go through some of those. It's been, it's almost a 4-hour baseball game, but if you go back to the first inning, Reagan Ricken gave up a couple of runs in the first. But then look at what happened in the bottom of the first. Stanfield walks, Brown got on an error. Then you went fly out, ground out, and John Pearson's up. Remember, this is a guy who has recently been inserted in the lineup sort of as your everyday third baseman out, and he keeps coming through in these moments. So you have 2 on and 2 out, and Pearson comes up with the big 2 RBI single to tie the game. I mean, we've all been watching this team, and the vibes aren't exactly awesome. And so to get down 2-0 in the top of the first on a Tuesday night against Louisiana Tech doesn't really feel super great. And to be able to answer there in the bottom of the first, the 2 RBI hit by Pearson to knot it up was a bit of an exhale spot. And then look at what happened in the bottom of the second. Sometimes there's moments in a game, especially in baseball where subtleties matter, that you'll never, well, I guess maybe they will show up in the box score, but it's not the pretty picture, and you kind of had to have been watching to see how it went. But, Milam singled, and then Caraway doubled, but then Stanfield strikes out sort of meekly. Milam singled, York flew out down the left field line. Caraway doubles, so you've got second and third. Stanfield strikes out meekly. And so this is a bummer, because you had second and third with 1 out. Like Stanfield, a veteran player, I'm not going to crush Stanfield. I mean, he's been fantastic, but second and third, less than 2 outs, and especially Stanfield being a veteran contact hitter, you got to put the ball in play. You have 1 of 2 jobs. The ball has to go on the ground to the right side or in the air to the outfield. You've got to get the run home from third with a runner on third and less than 2 outs. And Stanfield strikes out. So now you're in a situation where you're still in a tie ball game. You got second and third. You're at risk of blowing a great opportunity. And then Jake Brown comes up, and Jake Brown singles to left field, and 2 runs score. So now you're up 4-2. But I love what happened here because this was the beginning of a 2-out rally. Just when Tech thought maybe they were going to get out of it in a tie ball game, the avalanche came because then Cerna came up. And by the way, so Brown's on first base. And if you remember, Louisiana Tech throws the pitcher throws a breaking ball and it bounces, and Brown read breaking ball in the dirt off the release and took off and took second base. It wasn't a wild pitch. It was just a breaking ball in the dirt. Brown read it. One of those moments where it's a hidden thing that you're never going to know unless you were watching the game. Then Cerna comes up and rolls one to second base and goes right under the second baseman's glove, and Brown scores. So in that moment, obviously you were the beneficiary of the error, but if Brown's standing on first base, it's a dramatically different feel for that second baseman getting the roller from Cerna. So now it's 5-2. Then there's a bases loaded walk, a wild pitch with the bases loaded. So you go 6-2, 7-2. And just like that, you end up scoring 5 runs with 2 outs in the bottom of the second. And it all started with Jake Brown's RBI single, then a heads-up play on that dirt ball to get to second base. Those are the types of things where I'll say, you can look and go, 15-5, they beat Louisiana Tech, whatever. Yes, 15-5, they beat Louisiana Tech, whatever. Nobody's going to remember this at the end of the season. But the thing that illustrates what this team can be, Pearson with the 2-out, 2 RBI single, Brown with the 2-out, 2 RBI single, swiping a base, scoring on the air, getting the 2-out rally going. And then even later, Curiel in the bottom of the 5th, the big double that made it 9-2 after they hit a guy and you got a single. Curiel comes up with the big knock. Now, Brown had an opportunity there after a walk with Curiel on second and then after the walk and struck out. But still, you had a big opportunity. But you've still come through in opportunities there. And then what you did there in the bottom of the 8th inning, where York hit the big homer to go up 12-5. And then after you had 2 outs, you had the RBI single to make it 13-5, and then Curiel's double to make it 15-5 for the walk-off there on Cerna's heads up play there. So in any event, I thought those moments were really big in this ball game when you had these 2-out opportunities offensively and you came through. So just a little star next to those in the box score. I also thought, if we're going to give criticism when it's warranted, then you have to give credit when it's due. And I believe that in this job, like criticize when warranted. Yes. I mean, sometimes criticism is warranted. Be fair, but when warranted, give criticism. But when people deserve praise, deliver that as well. And I thought Zach York deserved that praise. Now, he did pop up in this game because he loves to hit the ball in the air. But the first AB, the fly out to left, he put a good swing on that the opposite way. And it was a deep fly out to left. But he also turned on 2 and mashed 2 homers, one against the left-handed pitcher. So, York is a guy that has struggled mightily this season. He homered in his first at-bat of his LSU career, but hadn't homered in a month. And I think that it really started to weigh on him. He got benched after the 4 strikeout performance on Friday. They played Cerna at first on Saturday. York was back in there at first today, and he has it going 2 for 4 with 2 homers, the 4 RBI. He also had a walk and has his average now up to 275. I don't know that I am bullish again on Zach York because he homered a couple of times here in a midweek game. What my hope is for Zach York is that this gives him an opportunity to exhale and just say, man, look, just take a breath and do the thing you know how to do, which is go in the box, have a good eye, take your walks, and then put good swings on pitches that are over the plate. And if he does that, good things can happen because he's done that throughout his career. But, the big criticism that we've talked about with this team that I think is really their big shortcoming has been, I've said it, certainly a lot of us have said it, that you missed on these portal guys, right? From York and Caraway and Simpson and, Dardar. These are guys that you had brought in, veteran college baseball players that you anticipated were going to come in and be contributors for you, veteran contributors. and it just hasn't materialized for any of them. Well, on this night, York goes 2 for 4 with 2 homers, and then Carraway also had a multi-hit game. Carraway ended up 2 for 5 with a double. He did have a strikeout, but Carraway came up in a couple of big spots. So, and he hit one. The double was, I think they said on the broadcast, 112 miles an hour off the bat. It's when he roped down the left field line, which was I think that was the double in the second. I don't know if I charted it. Anyway, I think it was in the second inning when Carraway hit that double. It was second or the third. It doesn't necessarily matter. I don't need to be married to it. But if you were watching the game, yeah, it was in the second. It was after York flew out. So Milam singled, York flew out to left, and it was Carraway's double down the left field line. It went 112 off the bat. So even if for a night, 2 of the transfers you've been counting on to be key contributors for you ended up having a good night, and that was good to see. Now, a couple of other things that I thought were really positive offensively we'll get to, and then we'll talk about the pitching. So stay with us here. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. All 4 number 1 seeds, UConn, UCLA, Texas, and South Carolina, have completely dominated the opening rounds of the NCAA tournament. UConn rolled with a 98-45 victory over Syracuse behind AZ Fudd, who had a 34-point explosion, while South Carolina has been led by Joyce Edwards coming off a 23-point game. UCLA leaned on Lauren Betts with a 35-point performance in an 87-68 win over Oklahoma State. And Texas advanced comfortably with a 40-point show from Madison Booker. And now we're headed to the Sweet 16. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The tournament is here, one of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's nonstop action from tip to final cutdown. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. And the best part, you get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, even same game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Get back to the game here in just a second. Do want to remind you, you can get your first month of the Everydayer Club free when you use the code MARCH. You'll unlock ad-free episodes and entry into our private listener group chat where we're hanging out daily. So click the link in the show notes to claim your free month. All right, LSU run rules Louisiana Tech 15-5. It was not a thing of beauty, but the result is the result, and it shows there were some good moments. So we talked about some of the key offensive moments. The other thing I'd like to highlight are 2 of LSU's stars that have scuffled at times this year that stepped up and had really nice days, and that's Derek Curiel and Stephen Milam. Now, Milam, they bumped down in the lineup today to the 7 hole, and maybe Jay did that to take a little pressure off of Milam, maybe take it down to the bottom third of the order. He'll get a little more to hit. Well, sometimes you play a hunch, and sometimes it blows up in your face. Sometimes you play a hunch and you come up smelling like a rose. And that's what happened today for Jay, putting Milam down in the 7 hole. So Milam ends up going 3 for 5 in this ball game. And his average is up to 255. Even the single at the end of the game, in the bottom of the 8th, it was the ground ball to short. They had shifted him behind the bag. Listen, if you're playing a traditional shortstop, that ball's into center field. But the shortstop was shaded toward the bag, had tip to Tech. They'd scouted Milam well, and it was right where it's supposed to be. And the shortstop booted it. They gave Milam a single on the play, so that's why he's 3 for 5. I think it should have been an error, but you can't assume the double play. But if nothing else, it should have been a fielder's choice out at second base. In any event, Milam gets the hit. But he was 3 for 5 in this ballgame. And sometimes you just need something good to happen. Milam's first hit of the game was a little flare over the shortstop's head that landed between the shortstop and the charging left fielder. And again, Milam has had so many games this year where he has mashed baseballs right at people. I just keep going back to the opener against Vanderbilt. I think it was maybe game 2 in the first inning, and he just crushes a ball to right field, and the right fielder makes a leaping catch against the wall. Like, that's just bad. Like, Steven Milam put a great swing on that pitch, and he just wasn't rewarded for it. And then sometimes, man, you hit a roller to short, and the scorekeeper gives you a single. And sometimes you hit a flare over the shortstop's head, and it lands. And that's baseball. And it can be maddening that you can hit a ball 415 feet, and it can be an out. Be a deep ballpark if you have 420 at center. And you can hit a dribbler in front of the mound, in front of in front of the dirt right there, in front of the catcher, and it's a single. So Milam had some good baseball fortune, and hopefully that kind of gets him going a little bit. The thing that's still incredible is he's never allowed the struggles at the plate this year. He's never taken it into the field with him. His glove has been literally flawless. He's not committed an error all season. And then Curiel, who we've talked about, I happen to be driving. My son plays Miracle League on Tuesday nights. And so I happened to be driving to Miracle League after my radio show when I was listening to the pregame show. And Bill Franquez was interviewing Derek Curiel in the pregame interview on the LSU Sports Radio Network. And they were sort of talking about what's struggled with the offense. And Derek Curiel said, we have to do our jobs. He said, me included. And it's the thing we've talked about a good bit here about Curiel. I do think that he is pressing. I think you're talking about a guy who has been baseball famous since he was 13 years old, was a freshman All-American, the National Freshman of the Year, and came into this season knowing it was his draft season, thinking he had to perform a certain way. And I think in part offensively, Curiel has gotten out of the habits of doing the things that have made him great, which is going middle away as a singles hitter and a doubles hitter. And he's been elevating the baseball too much, and he's been pulling the baseball too much. That's just not his game, because he's trying to show power numbers for the scouts. And I think that was sort of an omission there by Curiel, that he's been doing that. So to hear Curiel say that, and then to see this game go the way it did, where he was 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and a walk in the ball game. So he gets on base 4 times, and the doubles were very different both times. One the opposite way, and then one, obviously, the one he mashed to straightaway center. You know, if you put good swings on the baseball, good things are going to happen. And you saw that in this ball game. He hit one off the wall and left, and then one deep in center, which was ultimately the walk-off on the great slide by Cerna. So Milam and Curiel in the ball game combined to go 6 of 10. So those two combined to go 6 to hit 600 in this game, to go 6 for 10. So I really like to see that, because regardless of where they fall in the lineup, you just need those guys to be consistent. Now, what I don't want to see is being so reliant on those two guys so as to say if they're not performing, then your offense goes into the deep freeze. But those guys need to be 300-plus hitters for this offense to go. It's just what they are. They're your best players, and they need to perform that way. So Brown, in many respects, has carried this offense this year. Brown, Milam, Curiel need to be that triumvirate, that tripod that does that can pick up the slack when some of the young guys or the new guys aren't performing. And what another night by Omar Cerna. If you were watching the game, you heard on the broadcast, now an 8-game hitting streak. That's the longest on the season for an LSU Tiger. We talked about it last week. He had 2 hits in the ball game, but we talked about it last week. Cerna had to be in the lineup. He's been inserted. He's not coming out. The other, there was one other notable lineup change. We'll get to that and talk about the pitching as well in this ball game as we wrap up here. So stay with us. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. And we're brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still open when the pressure's on and you need the right hire. This is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And the stat that says it all, since we've been talking, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed. That's according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of Locked On LSU get a $75 Sponsored Jobs credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast. Do it now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On LSU. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. So I thought the pitching in this ball game was enigmatic. You had some nice moments from certain guys. Now, Reagan Ricken started the game, and Jay has sort of leaned on him a little bit here, and he has not been a guy that has performed exceptionally well. Couldn't even make it out of the first inning in this ball game, and then they went to Plog. I thought for Plog, who got the win in the ball game, incidentally, Plog gave you 2 innings. But really, I thought the moment that mattered for Plog was after he got into some trouble in the second, he ends up getting the big strikeout to get out of it with the bases loaded and to get out of that without allowing a run after having loaded the bases. So he worked himself into trouble, but after doing that, he was able to hold the rope and limit the damage. So a nice job by Plog there in the second to get out of that jam. Now, again, he worked himself into the jam, but nice job by Plog to get out of it as well. Connor Bench faced one hitter, got the out. Zion Theophilus went 2 innings, had a couple of strikeouts, couple of hits, but didn't walk a batter and didn't allow a run. Cooper Williams continues to be just the biggest enigma. He walked the first hitter he faced in the 6th on 4 pitches. He threw a wild pitch, then he strikes out 2. And, Jay Johnson, when he went to go lift Williams for Dothy, was laughing with him on the mound. I would love to know what that conversation was like, because clearly it's something they've talked about where Williams just shows you all the ability in the world from a guy that's 6'9", throwing 96, 97 from the left side, just this explosive whip on the left side. But sometimes you just don't know where it's going. And if he ever figures it out, it's like Chase Shores a year ago, where Shores with that long body, elongated delivery, it's like a baby giraffe. You just have to develop your core and your musculature and your consistency. And when you do, it's graceful. But until you do, it can be, what Cooper Williams has been. And I know coming into this season, this team was very bullish on Cooper Williams. And this coaching staff was maybe hopeful that Williams could emerge into being a rotation piece as a lefty, because they would love to have a left-hander in the rotation. It just hasn't materialized that way. But nice job after the 4-pitch walk to come back, and a wild pitch, by the way, to come back with a couple of strikeouts. Dothy gave up the double. Paz showed you his overpowering stuff, which we continue to see. I'll say it again. He's going to be a weekend guy before his career's over, and he's going to be a really good one. The ball explodes out of his hand. He's 97 from the right side. He is going to be a problem for a long time. This is just the type of opportunity where it's go out there and get outs and get innings. Fontenot is another one that, he's sitting there throwing 98. I mean, he's touched 99 and 100 this year. The arm talent is undeniable. He's going to get drafted in the top 10 rounds because teams are going to look at the arm talent and they're going to pick him, and he's going to get an opportunity. He's another one that if he develops consistency would be awesome. But the guy who just continues to wow every time out there is Santiago Garcia. He got the save. He faced just the one hitter, but he went in for for that one out to go lefty in a moment where it was 9-5. Remember, they were charging a little bit. It was 9-5, and Garcia came out of the bullpen and got the one hitter that he faced. So, part of these games, these midweek games, we have the conversation about midweek games matter, whatever. But so much of the value of these games is finding out who you can count on in what role for your SEC weekends. And so I think, I can remember going back to the UL Lafayette game on that Tuesday night when LSU went to Lafayette. It was Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was. And it was a moment where Santiago Garcia came into the ball game with a runner on second base against a left-handed hitter who was hitless that season against a lefty, and he induced a weak pop-up. And you could just tell from that moment on, it's been those moments, those situational moments where Jay trusts him as his top lefty out of the bullpen. I expect that to continue to develop as the season goes along. Garcia has been good and was again in this ball game. So the Tigers, it wasn't pretty for this game against Tech. At one point, a Tech reliever retired, I believe, I'm not looking at it right here, but retired, I believe, 7 consecutive hitters. But it's a game where LSU, at the end, they won. They run-ruled Louisiana Tech. They put up 15 runs. They put up 15 runs in this ball game on 14 hits. He did leave 11 on base, but all in all, a win, a confidence booster for some guys who needed it, and head into a big weekend with Kentucky coming to the box. And you'll be talking about it right here on Locked on LSU. So subscribe on YouTube and podcast. Until next time, it's Locked on LSU, your team every day.